I feel like I deserve a doctorate, a PhD in analysis of toxic people. You know what's crazy? I've dealt with more toxic people in my life than most men ever will. And instead of breaking me, it sharpened me. When you're like living around chaos, emotional, like whatever, like it doesn't look dramatic. It looks familiar. You're trained to look for physical danger, not the subtle poison in someone's tone, their guilt trips, their jealousy, or the imbalance between what you give and what you get. But as you evolve, when your standards rise, your discipline strengthens, and your self respect becomes non negotiable. You start seeing these dynamics clearly. You notice who drains you, who envies you, who only values you when you shrink yourself. And at that point, you don't make speeches. You don't complain. You don't announce anything. You simply operate at a higher altitude, and the people who can't breathe up there fall away on their own. That's the difference between a man shaped by chaos and a man who learned to dominate his environment. You stop absorbing toxicity and start recognizing it instantly, like an operator who's seen every tactic. Now let's get into why high caliber men naturally outgrow these people long before they ever mention it. One of the easiest ways to spot a toxic person is this: you never really know them. I've seen it 100 times. I can talk openly, share stories, give insights, move the conversation forward like a man who's lived and learned. But they stay blank, surface level, silent. They let you talk, not because they're listening, but because they're hiding. And it's not like I didn't invite them in. I'd give them space to speak, ask about their life, their experiences. But the answers were always minimal, vague, or conveniently unrelated to who they actually are. Here's the truth: people like that don't open up for two reasons. First, they don't trust anyone because they know they themselves aren't trustworthy. Second, they don't want you connecting the dots. They don't want you catching their inconsistencies, their manipulations, their lies, or the gaps in the persona they're performing. So they stay quiet, they speak in crumbs. It's a strategy. The less you reveal, the harder it is for anyone to expose you. And once you understand that pattern, you see it instantly. When you really start paying attention to certain people, especially toxic women, their whole facade collapses fast. Ask a few real questions, listen closely, and the inconsistencies jump out immediately. Their timelines don't match, their truths shift based on convenience, and their emotionals contradictions. They're emotional, but they contradict their own words. They hold back because the moment they genuinely express themselves, their intentions, insecurities, and manipulations become obvious. So silence becomes their shield. And the biggest tell is that everything revolves around them: their fears, their insecurities, their emotions. And somehow you're expected to bend your entire lifestyle around it. I've seen it firsthand. I was with a woman whose issues was that, like, never love, it was insecurity. The moment I'd go out, enjoy myself at the gym, or move with purpose, she'd unravel 15 calls, 20 messages, accusations that my independence was betrayal. She didn't hate me being out, she hated that I'm a confident man that could be noticed by someone else. And instead of elevating with me, she tried to cage me. That's what insecure people do. They fear losing you, so they try to limit your world. Your ambitions become a threat to them. Your discipline becomes a threat. Your charisma becomes a threat. Your success becomes a threat. And the manipulations hide behind fake vulnerability. You're hurting me. You don't care. You're abandoning me. All because you're living like a man with direction. Over time, the arguments drain you not because you buy into them, but because managing someone else's emotional instability becomes exhausting. High value men attract insecure, controlling women because your presence exposes what they lack. They don't want you confident or connected because a strong man with options can't be controlled. And that's the core psychology of toxic individuals. They try to isolate what they can't measure up to. Why do toxic people behave this way, huh? You might ask. Because you can't control a man who isn't isolated. A man who thinks for himself, has his own life, his own network, his own mind, he's untouchable. But once someone tries to cut off your communication with the outside world, they gain leverage. When they become the only voice you hear, they think they become the one with the power. Another major red flag is that toxic women care more about how they appear to others than who they actually are. It's about image, admiration, and outside validation. They want to be seen as charming, powerful, put together. Yet behind closed doors, they're the most destructive people you'll ever encounter. I've experienced that exact pattern. So when my ex or even like a certain whatever, like if they did something foul and I spoke to a friend about it, they didn't care about the issue. They cared that I made them look bad. In their head, me explaining the abuse was an attack on their reputation, not a sign that their behavior was unacceptable. Everything like revolves around them. Their public image matters more than the damage they're causing behind the scenes. And this is exactly why toxic people don't want you talking to anyone. The moment you vent, the moment you mention what's actually happening, other people will tell you the truth. This isn't normal. This is emotional abuse. This is manipulation. And once you hear that, you're far more likely to walk away, which is their biggest fear. They know that another person with a clear perspective can break their influence instantly. They don't want you grounded or supported. They want control over you, over your mind and your perception. Another undeniable sign is this. Who you you don't like who you become like when you're with them. You know, your energy dips, your confidence drops, your moods get heavier. Sometimes you even start to look worse physically. And that's not an exaggeration. Dating the wrong women can literally affect your appearance. It's logical and spiritual. Logical, your cortisol level will spike. Spiritually, your energy just gets drained by someone who feeds off your power instead of contributing to it. When your stress levels spike, everything shows. Your sleep gets worse, your body holds water, your face dulls out, your hair thins. It's biological, you know? Cortisol eats away at your appearance and your confidence. And energetically, it feels like someone is draining your light. Toxic people, they operate like this. They can't generate their own confidence or self worth, so they siphon it from whoever they attach themselves to. The more you lose yourself, the better they feel. You notice a pattern? You start unraveling while they suddenly feel energized, successful, uplifted. It's not an accident. They're feeding off of you. Toxic people also have a talent for pulling out the worst versions of you. They trigger you until you don't even recognize the man you worked hard to become. I've been there. I've put in years building peace, discipline, calm, only to have someone drag me back into the old chaos with a single interaction. That's when you realize your home, your relationships, your friendships should be your escape from stress, not the source of it. Life already hits hard. The people you let close should make you stronger, not drain you. And here's another sign: drama follows them everywhere. I knew someone like this for years, always in a toxic relationship, always chasing chaos, always abandoning the people who care whenever a new dysfunctional situation came around. And the moment they ran back crying, I was the one that was cleaning up the mess, fighting their battles, holding them up. I don't mind helping once, twice, three times. But after a while, you realize you're stepping in between them and their lessons. They're not growing because you keep rescuing them. Sometimes you have to step back and let people face the consequences they were meant to face. Not every burden is yours to carry. Another thing, toxic people apologize with words but never actions. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. But it always does. Manipulation dressed up as remorse. I don't believe anyone's words anymore, only patterns. Love is not what someone says, it's what they do. If their actions contradict their words, they're lying, plain and simple. When someone truly cares, you can feel it without asking. When they don't, you spend your life making excuses for them. They're also dismissive of your feelings. Every time I brought up something that actually, you know, where I actually felt something, I they'd be like, "Get over it. It's not a big deal. You're overreacting." People do that because they used you, and they're used to you being the strong one. They assume you don't feel anything, right? But strength doesn't mean you're numb, and the hypocrisy is wild. If you ever gave back even 1% of what they put you through, they never speak to you again. It's not resentment to remember how someone treats you, it's awareness. Let's talk about effort. I've gone above and beyond for people because that's who I am, thoughtful, intentional, like I'm a generous person. But when someone reciprocates with the bare minimum, like a last minute cheap gesture with zero thought, it tells you everything. Effort is a mirror. It shows exactly how they feel. Believe the reflection, not the excuses. There's always, there's also like that loyalty thing. If someone drops you the moment a new person enters their life, a partner, a friend, whatever, like that's not love, respect, or loyalty. That's convenience. I had people who like the minute they got into a toxic relationship to obsess over like like I guess the friendship was over, right? That's not friendship to begin with. And it took me time to accept that. My loyalty runs deep and I deserve that in return. So I now will only pick people that I can see will be loyal to me going forward. Toxic individuals rewrite history, flip the script, paint themselves as the saint while turning you into the villain, even inventing stories if they have to. It's all for their image. They're terrified of accountability. They never sit alone long enough to face themselves, which is why they always jump to the next person, the next distraction, the next victim. Toxic exes and toxic women never stay single for long, and there's a simple reason: they can't stand being with themselves. These women have such low self worth that being alone forces them to face their own self hatred. So instead, they jump from person to person looking for a new emotional host. They project their insecurities into others, drain their confidence, and make them feel just as miserable as they are, not because they want connection, but because they want relief from themselves. These women also have no ambition, no drive, no goals, no direction, and a person with no vision will drain a man who does have one. I've spent years trying to elevate people who weren't interested in elevating themselves, helping with their goals, their like fitness, like whatever it is, giving them guidance, structure, support. And meanwhile, they stayed the exact same person, bro. Because when you do everything for someone, they never grow. They become dependent on you. They're like a leech. They expect you to carry the weight. They refuse to lift. And eventually you realize you're dragging people who were never meant to run with you. The moment you drop the rope, your life speeds up because dead weight will slow you down. Another pattern, right? Toxic people want you to stay small. I'm a man who grows nonstop, mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, and that makes insecure people uncomfortable. Instead of seeing your progress as inspiration, they see it as a threat. They tell you to stop improving, stop looking good, stop leveling up, Not because they care, but because your progress exposes their stagnation. You become a mirror of what they refuse to do. And when someone with low self worth sees you rising, they don't admire you, they resent you. You'll notice the same with friends. When you're evolving and your circle isn't, they'll try to humble you, belittle you, tell you to calm down or be realistic. That's not friendship. That's insecurity disguising itself as feedback. You can't build with people who are triggered by your ambition. They'll never cheer for you because to them your success feels like their failure. And that will make them have a lack of appreciation. right? No matter what you do for these people, support, loyalty, generosity, effort, it's never enough. Not because it isn't good, but because they don't want good things from you. They've already labeled you as the villain in their mind. Your kindness doesn't fit their narrative, so they dismiss it, sabotage it, twist it. They feel more comfortable when you fail because it confirms the version of you they created to protect their ego. Toxic people think you're better than them, not because you think it, but because they believe it. And once they decide that story in their head, everything you do is filtered through that insecurity. That's why they undervalue your effort, discourage your growth, and resent your success. Toxic people always want to cast you as the villain. It makes their life easier. If you're the bad guy, they don't have to face their own failures or look in the mirror. Family, exes, whoever, the moment you do something right, something generous, something honest, it threatens the narrative they build. They don't want your kindness because your kindness exposes their lies. They prefer the version of you they can blame, shame, or scapegoat. If they can't pin it on you, they'd have to confront themselves. And that's the one toxic thing people will never do. I've reached a place in my life where, yes, I can forgive people, not out of weakness, but because I understand them, I cared about them, I grew up around them, I was familiar with them. But now I see the truth. Forgiving them at the expense of myself isn't forgiveness, it's self betrayal. And I'm done betraying myself. Every time life stripped my circle down, every time people walked out or were removed, the message was the same. The only person I can truly rely on is me. I've tried giving chances, I've tried loyalty, I've tried love. All it did was lead me right back to myself again. And this point, repeating the same patterns isn't compassion, it's self sabotage. I didn't come this far to accept the bare minimum. I didn't survive when I survived to settle for emotional scraps. I know what I give, I know how I show up, I know the level of loyalty, effort, and consistency I pour into the people I care about. I deserve the same level back. Not eventually, now. And yes, there are people out there who will match that energy. People who will meet you where you stand. People who pour into you the way you pour into them. You haven't met them yet, but they exist. Life doesn't take people from you without planning to replace them with better ones. But only after you break the pattern that kept you tied to the wrong ones. And this is where discipline comes in. Missing someone doesn't mean you go back to them. Reaching out just once isn't harmless. It's betrayal of the man you are becoming. When you chase someone who treated you poorly, you're telling yourself they were worth more than your self respect. They're not, not even close. Choosing yourself isn't ego, it's intelligence. One day, I'll build a family with my beautiful girlfriend. I'll be a father, and I refuse to bring a woman into that role who isn't consistent, stable, loyal, or like loving. I saw so much chaos, inconsistency, emotional detachment. I know what that does to someone. My future family will know stability. They'll know love. They'll see a man who leads with clarity, not confusion. And that starts with the choices I make right now. So if the woman I'm with right now wouldn't make a good partner, a good mother, a good teammate in life, then why am I giving access to my time, my heart, or my future? To everyone listening, whatever you're going through, you aren't alone. I may sit alone at times, but I'm not empty. I know my tribe is out there. The people who understand my message, who resonate with my journey, who build themselves the same way I do. You've supported me, challenged me, and reminded me of my purpose more times than you realize. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for evolving with me. And thank you for showing me that the right people will recognize your worth without you having to bleed for it.